everybody, and welcome back to Am's Untitled Podcast. I'm Am. Hi, if you've never met me before, it's really nice to meet you. Welcome to my Percy Jackson dedicated podcast. In today's episode, we are going to be reviewing episode 6 of season 2, so Nobody Gets the Fleece. I'm actually super excited about this episode because I remember when it came out, I remember thinking, oh yeah, this is such a good episode. They're only going to get better and better from here, and that is exactly what happened. So we are officially 2 episodes away from the season finale, and I'm so excited. I know it's taken me a long time to get around to it. Like everybody else got to it a lot faster than I did, but I'm glad I took the time that I did because I'm really proud of the stuff I've managed to come out with, and I hope it's something different to what you guys have heard before. If you don't know how this works, basically what I do is I give you a rundown of what goes on in each scene of the episode and do basically like a commentary on it. So I talk about what's going on, character feelings, character development, any sort of reference to the books, that sort of thing. And sometimes I talk about the changes that the show has made from the books as well, because I think those are important. And obviously, I tell you if I agree with those changes, if I like those changes, if I'm not so keen on them, that sort of thing. So I've realised I've already been talking for a minute, so let's move on to the actual episode. Um, Oh, just before we do that, I wanted to put a spoiler disclaimer before I forget. This episode contains major spoilers from the show, so if you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend checking it out. All episodes of the show are available to stream now on Disney Plus and Hulu. That's season 1 and season 2. Yeah, they're really great. I highly recommend checking it out if you haven't seen it already. If you're a book lover, they are just perfect for you. If you're a huge fan of these books like I am, you're gonna love the show. That's all I'm gonna say. Right, let's move on to what actually happens in the episode. So, in the first scene, we see Tyson floating in the water unconsciously. Obviously, we didn't really get to see what happened to him. The last time we saw him, I think, was in episode 4, when he was on the ironclad, and then obviously the ironclad disintegrated and he disappeared. So he hits the floor of the sea and he obviously wakes up. He's obviously a son of Poseidon, so he can breathe underwater. And I think this is a very important moment for him as well as us as an audience, is because it's the first time we get to see him like acknowledge some sort of power that Poseidon has given him. Like even if it's something so simple as him being able to breathe underwater, I think that's such a big thing for him, and he realizes that actually there are benefits to being a son of Poseidon, I suppose. And he sees Calogia's charm floating in the water and he reaches out to grab it. And I love the subtle foreshadowing because obviously Calogia's charm originally belonged to Annabeth and she chucked it away in episode 4 because she was so angry with Luke, and it was kind of like a reminder of the past and the mistakes that she'd made, and I think her throwing it into the ocean was kind of her way of letting go of all of that. And I like that there's a little bit of foreshadowing towards us meeting like the hippocampi and like rainbow. So I'm quite excited for that. And also, can we just talk about for this this particular scene? The score for this scene is absolutely brilliant. It is tense, but it's also got like hopeful elements as well at the same time. Like you know that Tyson is okay and he's gonna make it. And obviously, we hear like a creature sort of bellowing in the distance, and Tyson turns around to face the creature, and you see like rainbow debris covering his face. And I knew who it was. I was like, oh my god, it's Rainbow. I was like, I knew it. But it was such a nice way of them foreshadowing it. So, like, they just give you enough to get you excited, but also they don't give you everything that you want just yet, which I like. Let's move on to the next scene. So the next scene obviously immediately flashes to Percy in a dream, and he is in the big house and it's raining and thundering outside. Again, the foreshadowing, the use of natural elements, I like. It's a huge part of the show, and I loved it because I'm very much about very tedious details that other people overlook. And I think that this show in particular is very good at using those tedious elements. Percy turns around and sees a bunch of dead campers all over the floor. Honestly, that was horrific. Can I just say, like, watching that was just like, ooh, I was like, my jaw was on the floor. I was like, what is going on here? Why are people dying? I was like, I look at the people at Camp Half Blood as my family. So when I see them, like, in a state like that, like, it really does, like, sort of mess with my head. And as he's like looking around on the floor and looking at these campers, a shadowy figure bursts through the door that looks like Kronos did in episode 8 of season 1. And you could hear like the thunder in the distance all of a sudden. And Percy looks so scared. Like, this is the first time I've ever seen him afraid. And that shocked me a little bit because I was just like, he's not normally like that. And obviously, this figure manages to electrocute him, and he suddenly wakes up from his sleep. He lights a lamp, and obviously the light from the lamp sort of wakes Annabeth up. And she asks him, like, what's wrong? And Percy tells her that he doesn't want to wait till morning to go and get the fleece and save Grover. I really love him. Like, honestly, I love Percy. Like, there's quite little that he does wrong in my eyes. But sometimes when he says things like this, I can tell, like, it's this kind of, what would you call it? Like, what's the word? When you suddenly feel the urge to do something, there's a specific word for it, and I'm not really sure what it is. Like, it's not coming to mind right now. Yeah, whatever the word is, it will come to me at some point. And I understand why he wants to save Grover, but also, like, they're facing something that they've never faced before, which is like a cyclops, like not a good cyclops like Tyson. And it's almost like you have to understand your enemy's strengths and weaknesses. Like, although like Polyphemus's weakness is that he's blind, he has got the gift of hearing. He can hear a pin drop, so they can't risk going in there, and they would probably die if they were to do that. And I'm so glad that Annabeth is kind of there to keep Percy in check, to stop him from making those sorts of, like, I nearly had the word and it's gone again. Like, sudden decisions. That's not the word I was looking for, but close enough. Annabeth reminds him that they do have a plan, and it's based off the stuff that they've learnt from the Odyssey. And I love all the references to the Odyssey. I think that's such a nice element that the show's put in. And I quite enjoy like hearing them subtly talk about it here and there. I think it's quite nice. She knows that their plan is solid, and she's still looking at him, and he's still got like a little bit of doubt in him, and she could tell that something's bothering him. And you know what, this sort of stuff I feel like gets overlooked. Like, as a Percy shipper, these are the sort of things that I look for, and it's these little instincts that I like. It's like they can tell when the other person is off just by looking at them. Like, that person doesn't have to explicitly say that they're having a bad time or they're struggling with something, they just know. And I like that. It's a really important part of their dynamic, and I'm glad that the show has managed to put that in there as well. Percy tells her, of course, about his dream of seeing Kronos, and he says that Kronos actually, in fact, had a different face and that she was a she. I already knew who he was talking about. He is very, very paranoid about Thalia, and we see a brief flashback that it was Thalia actually under the hood. And I think since he's found out that she could be the child of the prophecy, he's really on edge. Like, Luke really got into his head in episode 3, where he was saying to him, like, if Thalia was given the chance to tear down Olympus, like, she would do it. And I think since that moment, he's become very paranoid about Thalia. Like, he knows that he wouldn't destroy Olympus, but he doesn't have that same, like, reassurance that Thalia wouldn't do it. Like, he's never met her. He only knows what he knows about her based on what Grover, Annabeth, and Luke are telling him. So I think the fact that he's got no actual solid impression of her, I think it is making it harder for him to accept that she could be the one that makes this choice, this fatal choice. And I think at the minute he's feeling like she would destroy Olympus because she hates her dad. But I suppose we'll see. It'd be really nice to see like their dynamic in season 3. Like, I don't know how the show's gonna play it off, because obviously in the book, like, all they do is fight. Let's be honest, because they're so similar. And I think that maybe the show is gonna touch on that. But it's like there's a difference between like bickering and actually arguing. So it'd be nice to see like which way the show decides to take it. Annabeth knows that Percy saw Thalia in his dream. He doesn't even explicitly tell her that it was Thalia. And she tries to sort of convince him by saying that demigod dreams are like tricky to understand. And part of me was thinking when I was watching the scene, I was like, I don't know if she's trying to convince Percy or if she's trying to convince herself that Thalia is good. Because obviously Thalia has been gone for a long time. Like, Annabeth was like 6 or 7 when she met her. Like, children have a very different perception. They always see the good in other people. And it's like, I don't know if what Annabeth remembers about Thalia is an accurate representation of who she is, because obviously, like, as a kid, like, you don't look for faults in people, whereas when you get older and you become a lot more observant, you understand that there are some people that are good and there are some people that are bad, and there's some people that are in between. And I think Thalia is a very grey character. Like she's got a lot of grey area to her. So once we get to meet her properly, it'll be nice to see where she sorts of stands on this whole destroying Olympus thing. And I think again, like the same way Luke got in Percy's head, I think he's kind of in Annabeth's head as well. Like I feel like she's doubting her belief and her in Thalia because of what he said, which is very interesting. He's a very good manipulative character. Um, Percy tells Annabeth that his mum likes dreams because she tells him that they never lie and they always somehow tell you the truth. Again, it's coming back to this whole idea that he's completely paranoid about Thalia. And obviously, like in season 3, I don't know how long it's going to take for them to see eye to eye and if they ever see eye to eye. Like, it will be interesting to see that. Annabeth tells him to get some sleep and that they move at dawn. And Percy eventually blows out the lamp and puts his head in his hands. He's so worried, like, genuinely so worried. And I don't think he's only scared of Thalia. I think he's also scared about what's going to happen when she returns to camp. Because obviously, like, she's already has a relationship with Annabeth and she has a relationship with Grover, but also, like, she loves Luke. And it's like she hasn't seen Luke as a traitor just yet. And I don't know if he knows if he can trust her because she equally hates the gods as much as Luke does. So yeah, that would be interesting. And that's where that scene sort of comes to an end. Scene 3 is on Polyphemus's island, and Polyphemus tells them. So, if you don't know, Grover and Clarice are tied up in front of him, and he tells them that the gift of his island is living alone. And in all honesty, I think for a lot of people, for a hermit and an introverted person like myself, having a whole island to myself where no one disturbs me actually sounds really lovely. But I know to some people that that would be terrible because they need social connections to thrive. And I think we all do to some extent, but I'm just a lot more introverted, so I don't really like that. But yeah, I suppose that's a good gift. He's just complimenting his island. I don't really see that there's anything wrong with that. And he gives this huge speech about him creating his island and turning it into its own world. And, all these outsiders that come to his island are either enemies or they're food. And the island is absolutely stunning. Like the way it's been shot is so like picturesque. Like it literally looks heavenly, but it's actually not. And Paul, Clarice, and Grover are having to listen to him sort of have a bit of a waffle about how great his life is on the island. And he tells them that if they don't trust nobody, then you live, and that mortals can't see that even with their two eyes. The reason why I pointed this out is because I'm taking a slight offense to that statement. You can tell that he is one of those monsters that looks down on humans because they need community to survive. He believes that he is superior to people because he doesn't need anyone or he's not reliant on anyone. He has a little bit of like a god complex going on here, and he has a little bit of a weird, like, twisted mindset, and he thinks that trusting people is a weakness, which it's not, obviously, for us as humans. Like, it's not. We need people around us that love and believe in us. Like, that's just a human nature thing. But it's interesting to see how spending so much time alone has turned him the way that he is. I just thought it was quite an interesting thing to bring up, but this god complex comes out a lot in this episode, and I'll probably talk a little bit more about it as we get there. Clarice basically just savages him and says that considering he likes to be alone, he can't seem to shut up. And quite honestly, I agree. I probably would have said something similar. I have got a bit of a mouth and I can't help myself. And obviously Grover tries to shut her up because he realizes that Polyphemus could kill both of them. And I found it absolutely hilarious. And again, it comes back to, I've touched on this so much this season. I say it a lot in the books as well. It comes back to these humorous moments in serious situations. And I quite like that. It kind of gives the audience a bit of respite, which I like. Polyphemus tells them that he is going to add their voices to his collection. Ooh, it's really creepy. Like the way like when he does it, it's like it kind of makes my skin crawl a little bit because I'm like, oh, I hate that. And he lays down a spade in front of them with gold paint dripping down it. Again, that's a huge hint as to what's going to happen later on. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later on. And it also shows like how different he is to other monsters that they face. Like other monsters most of the time don't have like a conniving plan behind doing something. They just do it because they hate demigods. Whereas he has a bit more of like he's got a motive behind what he's doing, if that makes sense. And then he starts making the voices of all the people that he's killed, and it was really disturbing. And you know what? He's one of those characters that is just pure evil. Like, you know how I talk about Luke, like he has a reason to be the way that he is. Polyphemus doesn't have any sort of reason to be as malicious as he is, and I think that's what makes the whole situation more disturbing. It's like there's no like reason why he should be like this. He just is like that, which is quite worrying. Grover asks Polyphemus where he's learned how to lure satyrs into his cave, which is quite a valid like question. It's like I've been wondering the same thing. Like, how has he managed to get so many satyrs to come to him? Which is quite interesting. And Polyphemus tells him that actually Pan was the one that bought him the golden fleece. Why Pan would do such a thing, I have absolutely no idea. And obviously, without giving any further explanations, Polyphemus tells Grover not to concern himself with the intentions of the lost god. And I think that's been quite a bit of a kick in the teeth to Grover, because obviously searching for Pan is his life's mission. And when someone tells you that you shouldn't do that, or makes you think that you're wasting your time and kind of is trying to plant these seeds of self-doubt, it can be a real kick to the teeth. And I think that's kind of why Grover's face falls in the scene a little bit. Clarice tries a brilliant manipulation technique, and she tells Polyphemus, I think you're afraid because our reinforcements are coming to save us. She's also someone that is quite good at getting in people's heads, and you can tell she's a true daughter of Ares with the stuff that she says sometimes, because she's like, you can tell it's all like war techniques and war strategy that she uses. We see a shot of Percy and Annabeth running up the tree. They've managed to make it to the island, and they're coming to save Grover, basically. And Polyphemus tells them that heroes will cross oceans to save their friends. And when they do, he will be ready for them. I really don't like where this was going. Like, I could already tell. I was like, no, he's just going to do something absolutely terrible. I just know it. And Polyphemus is like an actual threat, because he knows that Percy and Annabeth are going to come to save Grover. Grover is their friend. And by doing so, they're basically being lured into a trap, and that trap might get them killed, basically. And it comes back to this whole God complex and thinking that, like, mortals are weak because they think with their hearts, and they have that humility, and they have that compassion for people. And I think the God complex thing kind of comes in because he feels like he gets to decide on his island, on his world, who lives and dies, which is quite scary, but also makes him an incredibly interesting villain. Polyphemus tells them that he has only kept them alive this long because they are bait. He really is smart. Like, I can't really fault him in his strategies, because he's quite clever. He's thought everything out, and he's gonna he's gonna be able to put it off, basically. And poor Grover is sat there like looking down. He looks so scared. I think he's just realized now that he's lured his friends into a trap without even meaning to, and he feels so guilty that he feels like he's just set them up to die, basically. And even though he didn't mean it, we know that he's a very emotional character, and something like this is really gonna upset him, which is quite sad. And that's where the scene sort of comes to an end. Let's move on to the next scene. So it opens up with Percy and Annabeth basically scouring the island. And Annabeth is about to grab their disguises while Percy is watching the cave entrance for Polyphemus. So they sort of split off to do what they need to do. And whilst Annabeth is grabbing the sheepskin as their disguises, an iris message appears, and it's Luke. I was like, oh god, here we go. And Luke basically tries to warn Annabeth about Polyphemus, but she's obviously not having any of it. She doesn't trust a word he says. And I'm really proud of her for not giving in to him. Like, I understand how much she loves him, and sometimes how difficult it can be for her to accept who he truly is. And she knows that he's no good, but her love for him is getting in the way. And I suppose it's really like cementing this idea that everybody is weak when it comes to the people that they love. And it shows, like, I feel, in my personal opinion, that more of her human side comes out when Luke is involved. He brings that vulnerability kind of out of her. Whether he does it intentionally or unintentionally is a completely different thing, but that is just something that I've noticed. Luke says that she thinks he is wrong about everything. And you know what? She says, actually, no, you're not wrong about everything. And even that caught Luke off guard. He's like, oh, you're agreeing with me on something? Like, that's not right. And then we see a little flash of Percy. And I swear to God, he's got like this sixth sense when it comes to Luke getting into Annabeth's head, or like Luke trying to interact with Annabeth, because he basically just abandons his post to run and find her to see if she's okay. Again, coming back to the whole soulmates instincts, I quite like that. It's very nice. Um, Annabeth tells Luke that she agrees that Thalia hated Zeus, but he's wrong to assume that she would ever stand with Kronos. Like, she still has this perception of her being a hero and her sacrificing herself for someone she barely knew. Like, she's a good person. Like, she would never do anything that would hurt anyone or side with the people that are trying to cause a war, basically. And you know what? I think she's got a little bit of personal loyalty as well, which is quite nice. Like, it's not as fatally like causing her issues as it does for Percy, but it's nice to see that human side of her come out sometimes. Luke is obviously still trying to persuade himself that Thalia would have wanted change. And Annabeth tells him, like she would want change, but she wouldn't want it through war. Like, it's amazing to see how different their perceptions of Thalia are. Like, if you think about them, they knew Thalia around about the same time. Like, yes, Luke knew her for longer, but they have such a different, like, I don't know, but maybe perception is the right word of how she is. And, it will be interesting to see when Thalia sees Luke again how she responds, because in the book, like, she's fully like ready to kill him, but it'll be interesting to see how it plays off in the show. um Annabeth tells Luke that Kronos has already changed him, and you can sort of see his facial expressions. They go quite soft, and I think he knows deep down that she's right. And I've always thought this is that I think that Annabeth brings out like the best in Luke. She brings out whatever's good that's left in him. And he still loves her, guys. Like, I will always say this, like, no matter what like happens, he's always loved her and she's always loved him. And that love is probably the only thing that stops him from being entirely consumed by Kronos. And Charlie said this in an interview as well. He said, that Annabeth is Luke's weakness. And you see that a lot in this episode. And I like that. I like that she's his weakness. Like, even though the show is leaning into more like a sibling dynamic, I just like that they're still keeping the human side of Luke as well. Because this is probably one of the last seasons where Luke is actually himself. So it's nice to see that there's still a bit of good left in him, and as Annabeth is obviously talking to him, Percy cuts the connection and asks her what she's doing. He's so jealous, guys, and I love it. It's nice to see this side of him. In the books, right, her love for Luke causes so many problems in the Percy Beth dynamic. Like, sometimes I would get frustrated with her as well, because I'm just like, why? How can you still have feelings for him when he is the way that he is? And it's nice to see that the show has taken that. It's so important for Percy, Annabeth, and Luke. Their entire equation is based off these feelings she has for Luke. So I'm glad that the show have decided to keep that in. Annabeth obviously tries to defend herself, and saying that she was only talking to Luke because Luke was trying to warn her and he called her first and blah blah blah. But Percy sort of just tells her, like, look, we need to go because Polyphemus has left his cave. And I think there's a bit of a moment where he realizes that she's becoming a little bit soft again and that Luke is getting in her head a bit. And he keeps telling her, he's like, Luke is working an angle. Like, he's basically saying to her, he can't be trusted, so stop trusting him. And Annabeth doesn't really say anything. And it's coming back, like, we're sort of getting a little bit of the tension that was happening in the first two episodes, which I quite like again. I like that their relationship is a lot more complex. Like, relationships are not easy, and you're not always like hunky dory with people all the time. So it's nice to see that yes, they agree on a lot of things, but Luke is one thing that they just never agree on. And they eventually grab the sheepskin and head off. It flashes to the Princess Andromeda, and Alison basically questions Luke, and she asks a very valid question, which is like, why are you wasting so much time on Annabeth? Like, I think that part of it was like a hint of jealousy, but also I think she knows like Luke loves Annabeth, and I think she knows that that is the reason why he can't fully be loyal to Kronos. Like, as much as he's trying to tell himself that he is a servant of Kronos, the good part of him is still there, and like deep down, I think he does know he's doing something wrong. But yeah, it was nice to see like Alison like straight up question him. And obviously Luke then starts becoming very defensive and he says that, he decides what's important. Like he's asserting his dominance, like he is the leader. That's what he's trying to say. And I don't believe it for a second when he says that it was recon only. I feel like he was just doing it to check in on Annabeth, but I don't know. Also, can we just talk about like Charlie's outfit this episode in particular? He looks very like smart and like businessman vibes, like boss man vibes is what I'm getting from his outfit. And I was living for it. I thought it was quite good. And it shows like how mature he's become as well. Like obviously his character is getting older and that maturity is coming out in his clothing, which is quite nice. Anyway, next scene. So we're at the what do you call it, the sheep pen, and Percy and Annabeth are both on all fours and they're crawling around with the sheep skin covering them. And I don't know why that was funny to me. Like just seeing them crawling around like pretending to be sheep, there was just something hilarious about it. And Polyphemus is slowly approaching, and Annabeth tells Percy to keep low and stay quiet. She looks quite scared, and you can tell like she still hasn't really shaken off her fear of cyclopses, and obviously Polyphemus is arguably the most terrifying cyclops. So I'm glad that the show like subtly put that in there, so we're reminded that actually she is still scared of cyclopses. She tells Percy to think woolly thoughts. It's so funny, like genuinely, I could not breathe in the scene. And the reason why is that she's such a serious character. She never really says anything humorous. And like it was nice to hear her say something unserious because it was like, oh, okay, like that's pretty cool. And like even Percy was a bit shocked. He was like, what? What did she just say? Woolly what? And then she starts bleating like a sheep, and Percy looks at her absolutely stunned. His side eye was bombastic in this scene. Like honestly, if I was there, like I swear to God, I would have died because I would have burst out laughing. I was just like, that is too funny. But obviously, the good guy that he is, he manages to play along with it. Polyphemus starts approaching the sheep, and I like this shot because we get to see how like really bad his eyesight is because it's so blurry, and whoever came up with that shot was an absolute genius. Like it's nice to see something through his one eye. And he smiles maliciously and takes the sheep out of the pen. Now I'm pretty convinced watching this episode back that he knew that Percy and Annabeth were there, but he's just playing along so that his plan plays out properly, which is very very cool but also like slightly disturbing. Percy and Annabeth obviously sneak off to the rocks across from the tree, and Polyphemus walks away. Percy runs over to the tree and looks down the hole to see if he can see Grover, and he sees the golden fleece obviously hanging above his head. And you know what? This was one of those situations, even when I was watching the episode for the first time, I was thinking, this situation seems too good to be true. Like, it's almost too easy. Like, it's going too smoothly. And I just knew that there was something wrong straight away. Clarice and Grover see some debris obviously falling from the top of the cave hole, and they're like, what the hell? And they see Percy standing above the cave hole. And bless them, they both have gags on, and Percy literally can't hear Grover practically shouting him that it's a trap. I was like, oh god, I was like, I really wish. I was just like, this is one of those situations where it's annoying because like there's so many things going wrong at the same time. And he looks so happy to see Grover, and then obviously he realizes that Clarice is down there with him. He runs over to Annabeth and he tells her that obviously Clarice is alive and he's trapped inside. And Annabeth looks absolutely mortified. And I know what's going through her head. She's thinking, how the hell are we going to save two people before Polyphemus gets back? And it flashes back to Grover and Clarice in the cave, and she's trying to stand up, and she does this incredible like lift where she lifts Grover up and she sort of swings him around and she smacks him into the mirror so it shatters into pieces. And she's so clever because I know what she's doing. Like she knows that she can't wait for Percy to get down there. Like she's gonna have to release them herself because they don't have much time. I love that she's not a damsel in distress, basically. I really appreciate that about her. And then Grover eventually realizes her plan and she starts cutting at the rope with the glass shards from the mirror. And that's when the scene sort of comes to an end. Next scene is Percy and Annabeth, and they're sat in front of the rocks, obviously. And Annabeth is like worried. She's like, I don't know how we're going to be able to save both of them. And Percy's bright idea, of course, was just leave Clarice behind. Obviously, he's so unserious and he would never do that. He claims he was kidding, but I feel like I know for a fact that he wasn't joking about that. They run over to the game and obviously begin their rescue mission. Clarice is still like frantically like trying to cut the rope loose, and she knows that she's running out of time. And once the rope was attached around the tree, Percy obviously starts climbing down it, and gold plane like starts dripping off the fleece onto Annabeth's hand, and she realizes that the fleece is a fake. Polyphemus is like ridiculously clever. Like honestly, I was not expecting that. I was like, it was a proper decoy. It was brilliant. It was a proper master plan. And Grover is still trying to tell Percy to turn around, but because he's got the gag on, just can't hear him. And Annabeth tries to get Percy's attention, but obviously he can't hear her either. Damn it, man! I was like, it was one of those moments. I was like, Annabeth, just scream! He can't hear you. Just shout! But obviously she can't do that. And Polyphemus starts running towards the cave, and Annabeth shouts at Percy, telling him that it's a trap. And meanwhile, just at that very moment, Clarice has managed to cut the rope loose so her and Grover are free. Annabeth puts on her invisibility cap and leaves, and Percy finally hears Grover telling him to climb up, otherwise he'll be stuck. And just as he starts to climb up, Polyphemus says, tricked ya, and then breaks the rope. He falls down and he gets like proper like princess catch from like the movies, and Clarice manages to catch him. And oh my god, this probably might be my favorite moment in the episode, because Dior's face when she caught him was like priceless. She's like proper like ugh. And Percy says hi, and Clarice throws him onto the floor. You know what, part of me thinks that she heard him say that he wanted to leave her on the island, and she's a little bit salty. But either way, the comedic timing was brilliant, and that's definitely one of my favorite moments in this episode. Probably one of my favorite moments in the whole show as well. It was brilliant. Like Percy and Clarice are like the ultimate siblings. Like they have such a sibling dynamic, and it's so funny. I love it. Grover obviously can't believe that Percy's here and gives him a massive hug, which is so cute. It's nice to see like their bromance again. Like I really missed like a lot of that. So it's nice to see them reunited again. Clarice obviously pulls them away from each other, and Polyphemus calls them fools, telling them that the only way out now is through him. Annabeth eventually grabs his attention by distracting him while she's invisible, and Polyphemus asks her which of the gods sent her, and she says nobody. Again, another reference to the Odyssey, which is pretty interesting. Odysseus obviously tricked Polyphemus into thinking his name was nobody and jabbed him in the eye with a spear. So I can't imagine that that conversation went down really well. You can tell Annabeth is like proper trying to rile him up and get under his skin as much as possible, so Percy and them can escape. But I'm also terrified because I know she's gonna get hurt. Like I could tell, like from the book. Obviously, in the book, she gets hurt quite badly, and I was like, I knew it was gonna happen in the episode at some point. I just didn't know how it was gonna happen, and I was slightly concerned for my girl. And also, there's shots of her where she's wearing the invisibility cap, and we can see what she's seeing, but also we can see what Polyphemus can't see, which is quite interesting. And a portal forms on the other side of the island, and Luke appears. Sees the fleece obviously dangling in the tree, and he basically wants to go and get it. And he sees Polyphemus fighting something that's invisible, and I'm guessing that he knew it was Annabeth, and he eventually starts to run up the tree to grab the fleece. Okay, next scene. So we are inside Polyphemus's cave, and Percy says that they have to find a way to help Annabeth. Grover is sort of like sniffing around. I think he can smell the golden fleece, and he's trying to figure out where it is. Clarice tells him that they need to find the fleece while Annabeth buys them the time. And you can see like Percy's loyalty like kicking in, and it's not that he doesn't want to find the fleece, but it's more of the fact that Annabeth is in danger and he can't stop himself from wanting to help her. So again, his fatal flaw is already kicking in, and we see more of it towards the end of this episode, which is quite cool. Grover starts walking around the cave looking for the fleece, and eventually Percy begins to follow him as he continues looking for it. And it flashes to Luke obviously approaching the cave, and he can see Polyphemus still trying to catch Annabeth in the distance, but he still heads to grab the fleece. I think there was a moment where he sort of hesitated and he wanted to help Annabeth, but he sort of like got back in the Kronos mindset and was like, no, that's not what I came here to do. And obviously, just as Luke grabs the fleece, he realizes that it's a fake. Honestly, it serves him right. I did have a little chuckle to myself because I was like, that's what happens when you force other people to like do the quest for you. Like, you don't get the reward from it, so it kind of serves you right. I'm such a horrible person. Grover obviously finds a real fleece hidden in a hole in the cave, and Polyphemus consents that the fleece has been found and runs towards the cave. It's almost like him and the fleece have like a special connection, which is quite interesting. Obviously, I know the fleece is his treasure, and obviously he's very protective of it, but it's nice to see like it kind of has like a spiritual connection to it. Annabeth obviously takes off her invisibility cap and sees him running towards the cave, so she chases after him. And Luke obviously spots Annabeth running and leaves the cave. Grover shows the golden fleece to Clarice and Percy, and they both look so shocked. Like, this is it. Like, this is what they came for. This is what the quest has been leading to, and they finally found it. Like, this is the way they're going to save camp. And I don't even think Grover can believe his eyes either. Like, this is the closest thing that he's ever got to Pan, like he's holding the thing that Pan has held. And he's such a clever satyr, like he doesn't get enough credit for how intelligent he is. So it's nice to see him have this moment where he's the one that finds the fleece. Okay, so the next scene is Clarissa and Percy trying to move the boulder that's blocking them in the cave, and obviously Grover's just managed to change out of his wedding dress and back into normal clothes. They hear Polyphemus approaching and obviously get ready to ambush him. Polyphemus moves the boulder from the cave, but then he gets injured by Annabeth and he knocks her so hard that she passes out and her head is bleeding. Honestly, that is one part of the books I absolutely hated. Like seeing Annabeth get hurt is like the hardest thing for me because she is my favorite character, and I'm just like the thought of her dying just doesn't sit right with me. Percy obviously sees what happened and he's like basically shouting and screaming and trying to move the boulder, but Polyphemus traps him in the cave again. My guy's about to lose his mind. Like he's not making it through season 3. Like genuinely, I'm already concerned as to what monster he's gonna turn into because when Annabeth goes missing, like things just he's just not who he normally is. And he can see Annabeth lying on the floor unconscious while Polyphemus like approaches her. I think he thinks that she's going to die, and that's kind of like messing with his head. And Tyson tells him to get away from Annabeth. I was like, oh, that's so cute. And it was such like a hero moment for Tyson. And I've actually missed him so much that it was nice to see him on the screen as like a hero and as this confident warrior. Like he is a special Cyclops. Like he's not just a regular Cyclops. And this scene really proves that he is a hero. And Polyphemus tells Tyson to step aside and calls him little brother. And it's so interesting because you can see like they're the same species, but they are so different. And obviously that's because Tyson's been raised in the mortal world by Sally, and Polyphemus obviously is basically been on the island for as long as he can remember. So whatever he was taught previously has kind of gone out the window, and he's got this god complex that makes him think that he's better than everyone else. Tyson tells Polyphemus that he's not his brother and that his brother is inside the cave. Oh my god, he's so wholesome. That line honestly makes me teary every single time. And you can see like Percy watching and he looks like he feels bad. Like he's treated Tyson so not badly, but he's never given him the respect he truly deserves. And he knows that he has a lot more to make up for now. So I think seeing him is actually quite overwhelming, and he sees it as like his chance to make things right, which is quite nice. And Polyphemus sort of tells Tyson, that demigods are no different from monsters. And Tyson tells him, no, like you're wrong. Like Percy is a hero. And it looks like Walker's like tearing up a little bit, which is quite nice. And he's so cute. I love him so much. Like Daniel definitely is one of the standout performances of this season. And the bit where they're talking in ancient Greek was such a nice touch. I like it. It's nice to hear that. Like I love the scene in season 1 where um Zeus and Poseidon are talking in ancient Greek, and it was nice to see like other people talking in ancient Greek as well. They start fighting, and basically Tyson body slams him off the cliff. And Percy looks so scared when he's falling off the cliff. Like he's realized at this moment in time the value of his brother. He feels like he's just lost him again. Like he only had him for 30 seconds and he's gone. And I think that's really messed with his head. And of course, he's now Percy can see that Annabeth's lying on the ground and he's screaming her name. And just then, like Luke appears, and we get our first look at like dark Percy, like season 3 Percy, the one who's ready to burn the world down because his girl's in trouble. Like I like that side of him. Like I can't wait to see more of that. And he says, don't touch her, don't touch her. And I was screaming, like I was pacing up and down because I was like, this is such a book 5 reference. Like I didn't think that we would get that line so early on, and it's quite awesome. And he tells Luke like, you better not hurt her. And he keeps trying to like find a way out the cave so that he can reach her before Luke does. Obviously he can't do that, but it's the fact that he's even trying that says a lot. And do you know what, one thought that kept coming into my mind, I was like, I can't believe it took him like 5 books to realize he was in love with her. Like this kind of behavior is not normal. Like I know we say that Percy is obviously fatally loyal and he would burn the world down for any of his friends, but this is different. Like the level of worry on his face was just different. And Luke obviously sees Annabeth unconscious and he checks her pulse and she realizes that she's dying. And all of a sudden, like he becomes very mellow and very soft again. And it's amazing to see how Annabeth being hurt has a different impact on each of them. Like, we always say that Annabeth being hurt brings out like the worst in Percy, but it brings out the best in Luke. And the parallels are insane. They really are two sides of the same coin. And I think Annabeth is that common denominator that decides how they're going to be, if that makes sense. And obviously, Percy hears Luke say that Annabeth is dying, and all of a sudden, like his whole demeanor changes. Like he can't accept the fact that she's gonna die. Like he's got to find a way to save her, and then that's when he gives the idea of using the golden fleece to heal her. Obviously, Clarice realizes what he's about to do, and they both race for the fleece, but Clarice grabs it first, and Percy tells her that they need to give the fleece to Luke. At this point, it feels like he doesn't care about anyone. He doesn't care about the gods. He doesn't care about camp. The only thing he cares about is keeping Annabeth alive. And again, it's this whole idea that his fatal flaw is coming out. His personal loyalty is causing him to make a dangerous decision. Percy tells Luke to open a portal so that he can give them so he can give the fleece to Annabeth, but Luke says that he can't do it. Yeah, I can believe that. I don't think that Luke is like as skillful just yet. I think we're talking more like book five Luke. He's a little bit more like knows what to do sort of thing. And honestly, like Luke reminds Percy again that Annabeth is actually gonna die. And literally, I'm not no word of a lie, his eyes like darken and there's a shadow that falls over the clave. And he turns around and he's practically begging Clarice to give him the fleece. Like he looks like his whole world has been turned upside down. Like he's looking proper rough in that scene. But Clarice obviously isn't having any of it. She cares about camp and she cares about her home. And obviously she's not that close to Percy or Annabeth, so she wouldn't sacrifice Quest for them. And she's adamant that she's not going to sacrifice the quest and that Annabeth would understand why she's doing what she's doing. And Grover tries to convince her, by reminding her about her promise to not let another warrior fall on the battlefield if she could do something about it. And obviously, while she's distracted, Percy grabs the fleece and gives it to Luke. He has done exactly what Cersei said that he would do in the last episode. You remember when she said that to save a friend he would do something evil? His evil choice was to give the fleece to Luke. Like, it might not seem like an evil choice, but it actually was in other people's eyes. He sacrificed the quest by giving the golden fleece to Luke to save Annabeth's life. And it turns out that Cersei was right all along. And I love that nothing that is said by any of the characters in the show is ever said for no reason. Like, there's always a reason and a hidden meaning behind everything that's said in the show. Luke obviously places the fleece on Annabeth and she begins to heal, but she's obviously still unconscious. He picks her up and her dagger, and Percy asks if she's okay, obviously, because that's the one thing he cares about. I think the hardest bit was when Luke said, "Yeah, she will be," and he sort of takes Annabeth away from him. And Percy has just realised like what he's done. Like because of his fatal flaw, he's put the camp in danger and he's put the gods in danger. Clarice obviously sits there taunting Percy for his choices, saying that he's probably killed Annabeth and Camp. That was really harsh of her, and it was slightly uncalled for, but I can see why she was annoyed at him as well. And obviously, Grover comes to his defense, saying that he had to do it. Um, Obviously, we know that Grover and Percy share an empathy link, so he can feel Percy's emotions better than anyone, and he understands how important Annabeth is to him. So obviously, he would never disagree with his choice to sacrifice the quest to save her. And Percy is sat, with his head between his knees, like he looks so upset and he's hanging his head in shame. And I felt so bad, and it honestly broke my heart to see him like that. I was like, he doesn't deserve to feel like that. Tyson rolls the boulder away from the cave, and Percy looks so happy. I think he just needed a winning moment, and seeing Tyson gave him just enough hope that things were going to be okay. And obviously, Tyson introduces himself to Grover, but obviously, Grover says that he already knows him. And he asks what happened to Polyphemus, and Tyson says that he wouldn't bother anyone again. You can tell he wasn't proud of what he had to do, but he did what he had to do to survive and to protect the people that he cares about. And I think that says more about how he is as a person. He's an incredibly sweet, compassionate character, and he would never do anything to harm anyone. But at that point, he had no choice. And I'm glad it shows him in a slightly darker light as well. Tyson obviously apologizes to Percy for Luke taking Annabeth, saying that he couldn't go after them because Percy was obviously here. Oh, guys, he's just so cute. Like he's like my little brother. I'm like, I just want to give him a hug. I'm like, oh, it's okay. Percy runs up to him and gives him a massive hug, and it really looked like he needed that. Like he's lost a lot. I think Annabeth being taken from him was like a big slap in his face. And I think like just hugging Tyson gives him reassurance that his brother is actually alive and he's well and nothing happened to him. Um, and it looked like he was crying a little bit as well, and I was like, oh. It's like, you know what? I have such an emotional connection to Percy as a character. Like, when Percy is in pain, I feel that pain. Like, it genuinely hurts my soul to see him in pain. So when Tyson tells him that, he's always known that he'd see him again, he's so wholesome, and I think he's one of those people that can really uplift Percy's spirits because he has that compassion, which is quite nice. And Clarice obviously asks where Luke is, and Tyson points, um, I think it was towards the left hand side. I think that's where he pointed. Obviously, Percy sees Annabeth's cap on the floor, and his eyes go dark again. Yes, go get your girl, bro. You do not leave her with Luke. And they see the boat that obviously Percy and Annabeth came to the island and sailing away. Luke has taken the boat and Annabeth. Clarice asks, "What now?" And Percy says, "Well, the obvious thing, which is we get them back." And Clarice asks how they're supposed to get off the island, and Tyson introduces them to Rainbow and his friends using Calogia's charm. The hippocampi are so cute. I really want one. They are just so they're just beautiful creatures in general, but it's nice to see them like properly in the show for the first time. And there's a shot just before the episode ends where it zooms into Percy's face and he says, "We get them back." And that's when you know like he's determined to do the right thing, and that's the end of the episode. Oh my gosh. That was such a good episode. Like I had so much to talk about, and it was so good. So let's kind of wrap this up with my final thoughts and feelings. Obviously, Polyphemus's island was absolutely stunning. I'm pretty sure it was a practical location and it was so beautiful. Walker deserves a standing ovation for his performance in this episode. He did so well. It was chef's kiss perfection. We got to see light Percy and dark Percy, which is nice. It's a little bit of a hint towards season 3, which is quite nice. I like the changes from the book actually. It's nice that Luke was on the island too, and he's obviously the one that healed Annabeth, which is probably like quite a kick in the teeth for Percy, but I thought it was an interesting angle. Tyson is back. Obviously, I've missed him so much. He's one of my favorite characters ever. And Daniel, I love you so much if you're listening to this. He plays this character so well. I couldn't have imagined someone better to play Tyson. Polyphemus was, of course, a great villain. Um, I think he absolutely was a great performance in this episode. And yeah, he was just a brilliant villain. Like, I just think that he was cunning, but also like just pure malicious, which I quite liked. Obviously, it was nice to see Luke in a more vulnerable light as well. Like seeing Annabeth get hurt was the trigger for him. Like all of a sudden, he became a lot softer, which is quite nice. It's nice to see that she's still got a soft place in his heart. He's not all completely gone over to Kronos just yet. And obviously Glover and Clarice, it was nice to see them back. And I liked this episode because we got to see all the characters come together, which was nice. It was kind of like a reunion. And yeah, overall, it was just a brilliant episode, and I'm excited to review the next one with you guys. So, thank you guys so much for listening in. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. It's not as long as previous ones, so I'm quite proud of myself. Um, all episodes of my podcast are available to stream on Spotify and on my YouTube channel. Both are at Amazon Title Podcast. Follow me on Instagram, follow me on Threads to be the first to know when there's new Percy Jackson casting announcements or any sort of Percy Jackson news or just anything in general, really. Sometimes people ask me questions on there as well. So if you have any questions for me, my DMs are open. Message me on Threads. I will be more than willing to respond to you guys. And yeah, next episode we'll be reviewing. Sorry, had to sneeze. Next episode we'll move on to episode 7, which will be quite nice. We're one away from the end, which will be nice, and I'm going to have a special guest on with me when I review episode 8. So I'm very excited about that. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I hope you guys are having a great week, and I will speak to you guys very soon. Mwah. Bye.